Hello, everyone. Whether you're here live or afterward or in the afterlife, you are welcome. My name is Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks.
And my name is James Maynard, otherwise known as the Songbird. I'm handling the chat. Please chat with us, and I'll pass it on to Beth, and she can talk directly to you if you're live.
We love that because when you're live, he can tell me what you say and then I can answer you. But it doesn't really matter because I can write to you later, can't I?
That's right.
Yeah. So this show is called Lighting the Way. Granny Raps and Rocks. That means I talk about something and I play the piano at the same time as I'm inspired. So, tonight I am completing the Ego series. And the Ego series we started in the beginning of January. And I've gone over what is the ego, where does it come from, why does it do what it does, how it gets in the way of love and all that. And tonight, and how can you tell when you're in your ego? Tonight is very special. Because tonight we are going to do empowering ourselves instead of the ego, an invitation to the ego to join us.
Yes.
And what do I mean by that? Well, first I want to just very quickly recapitulate some of the things that we've been talking about. We've been talking about how the ego comes into being. And it is kind of it's a combination of different mechanisms that we've used throughout our life to survive. So it starts when we're born, at least when we're born, maybe before. And it is the awareness of individual existence, and its job is to protect us. And it tries, and it figures out all kinds of strategies as to how to get its needs met, right?
Yeah.
And because it starts at a very early age, actually as infants, the infantile ego is pretty self-centered because it doesn't understand that it doesn't exist all by itself as an individual, and that its survival depends on everybody's survival. So it tends to be very self-centered and give me this and I need this and I want this, and it can be very manipulative because it's figured out, the best way to get my needs met in this family is to manipulate or make mommy feel guilty or wink at daddy or make him feel big. And we have
And Tracy says hello and sends caring.
Hello.
Thank you, Tracy.
Caring back to you, indeed. So, or the ego can be very demanding if it's in a family where that is what works. I mean, we try different things to figure out how to get our needs met. And unfortunately, these patterns last and last and last. They become, I would like say, constellations of programs. Like, a computer has a program that you use to accomplish something. Well, we are programmed in certain ways based on our life experience and also our own inner characteristics and all the experiences we have and what we learn from others and what we see in our society and all that stuff. Okay, so what's the problem with that? The problem is that it tends to be very narrow focused. It's focused on me, and it's very short term. It's like, I want that ice cream, and I want it now, and I'm going to cry until I get it. Wah, wah, wah.
Another thing I'd like to add is that by virtue of all these program patterns that come about, one tends to lose connection with who one really is underneath all that. It's because basically we're being driven by our survival instincts and using our minds and our emotions to manipulate our world to make our needs met.
Absolutely. Very important. So we all tend to be caught up in this. And if you need any proof, just open the news or look at the climate change situation. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, climate change. Yeah, but it's not as important as this or as that. I mean, the fact that we're being wiped out with droughts and floods and all that stuff. Nah, it's just what we need in that moment. Is like that's what's driving us. I need that car. I need that profit. I need. Okay. So it is very, very bad for relationships. It's not so smart when it comes to survival. And it's very competitive because it's always trying to prove that it should get what its needs met and forget about everybody else. And okay. It's particularly bad in relationships because relationships are supposed to be about relating. But
To one another.
to one another. But for many of us, if not absolutely most of us, if not all of us, we are looking to our relationship to take care of us rather than as a place to relate. My
Mhm.
goodness.
Right.
Relate? What's that and what's the value in that? So, anyway, if you look at the bad behavior in the world, let's take something we all agree on, like child molestation is, well, most people except child molesters would agree that that's a bad thing. Okay. So the child molester says, oh, I'm only showing love and caring to this child, but everybody knows that the molester is taking advantage of that child's vulnerability, right? Now, what does this have to do with ego? Everything. Why? Because the molester is only looking from his or her own perspective. Like, oh, I want this, I need this, and now I'm going to convince myself that that child needs it too. But it's really coming from the I, and it's based on separation. See, this is important because the ego is all about individual existence rather than understanding ourselves as a whole, as a collective. And I'm going to get into that in a minute because this gets really exciting, I think. So, when you're talking about individual existence, that means we have to distinguish ourselves from everybody else. Like, why should I get that instead of my sister? Or why should I get this scholarship rather than that other person? Or why should I get the bigger this? Or my share, whatever. It's based on separation. I am separate from you. Now, that comes out in two ways. First, I am separate from the whole. I'm an individual. And I am separate from you. So that makes us always somehow competitive. Now,
Yes.
in our normal, ordinary consciousness, that seems absolutely true. You mean I'm not separate from you? Hey, pinch me. I hurt. You don't, right? Well, if you're very empathetic, you'll hurt too. But it's much deeper than that because we are, as we know, all part of the web of life. And we can't exist separately. Now, as I spoke about, I think in the first show, about what is the ego, we don't exist separately. Everything that you have came from the efforts of other people as well as the animal world, whether it's the food you eat that someone else farmed or that there was an animal who was slaughtered, somebody else slaughtered it, somebody cooked it, even if
The
it
clothing you wear,
the clothing you wear, and also
the
whoever
shelter you have.
that's right, whoever made the stove or the oven or your car that's driving on
The collective roads.
the collective roads that you did not create. So you see, we really don't exist as individuals. That it is illusion, and we have.
Amy says, thank you so much for this. What a deep topic, turning how we think relationships are on its head.
That's
thankfully.
right. That's
and she
right.
sends 2 hearts of love. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. So it's based on separation. So I am not feeling what that child is feeling when I'm molested because I'm separate. I don't have to know what it's going through. I don't want to know. I honestly don't because I want to be able to do whatever I'm going to do. And if I'm competing for a job, I don't want to know what the other guy, if he needs the job or she needs the job or they need the job because I only know that I need
Or
the
that
job.
they're a better match, a better fit for the job.
That's right. We don't
You don't
want
want to know that. You just want
No.
the job.
Exactly. So it's based on separation from the needs of the whole and it's separation from other people. And so, I mean, I could go on and on about this, but I'm going to spare you because I want to. This is just a video, but there is a lot that I have written about the ego in 2 of my books. One of them is called The Healing of God, Sacred Union, The Healing of God. And unfortunately, we don't have it yet on our network as a free PDF. So you would have to buy it at Amazon. All the rest of my books are on our Healing Arts Network at healingartsnetwork.org. It's in the post. But there is the second book, Living with Reality, which starts out talking about the ego, and the whole book is really about how we can overcome the domination of the ego. So how can we? It seems impossible. I mean, if life is a struggle and we're all trying to survive, how can we possibly overcome that? Well, that's what this show is about tonight. So I'm going to talk about an example, and some of you are going to get really mad. How could you? So let's say there's a family of 5. 2 kitties. Oh, we have Island.
Island, she says, she gives caring twice. Thank you, Island.
Kisses back, Island. So good to see you alive, and so good to see you here, live. So anyway, so here, let's say we have a family of 5. We have 2 small children, 2 parents, in this particular case, a man and a woman, and a grandma. That would be me. And we only have enough food for 4.
Ooh.
Now, how do we overcome the ego when we all want to survive? We all have survival instinct, right? So, well, we have a process we call what is for the highest good of all, including me. And let me be very honest, because I'm closer to the grandma, the 95-year-old woman, but I'm actually only going to be 78, but my body is 110. So the truth is,
Island says, good to see you.
thank you, honey. So I feel like I'm 110. So if the four of you eat and are well, I really should let go. Why? Because I couldn't survive anyway without you guys. I mean, what am I going to do alone in the world at 95, right? I'm going to go do a hunting and gathering? You know, I don't think so. And so I could say, you know, I should be the first to go. All right, but you say, oh, that's terrible. How could you possibly think that way? That's just terrible. We should use all of our resources to keep you going for every moment of your life. But if we have the resources, awesome, possum. But if we don't, the rest of you should go on. Now, what about the parents and the children? Let's say we only have food for 2.
Oh.
Cruelty to children. Obviously, the children should get the food, right? No. You know, the parents should get the food because the parents can have other children, but I'm talking about young children. They can't have other parents or create other children, nor could they go and forage for themselves and take care of themselves. They're going to end up dead anyway. So there is a certain logic. See, didn't I tell you we're going to hate me? But I'm saying there is a way, and look, we have another.
Oh, Blanquita says, hello, Beth and James. She sends a couple of hearts of love.
Hello.
Muchas gracias.
And there is...
And Todd says, nice to be here, even though I am late.
Excellent.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank
Great to have you with us.
So, Todd, I was just talking about how can we be in our consciousness and ask for the highest good of all if we all have egos that tell us we should survive? And I'm talking about how really, if you think about it in a different way, you realize that the grandma can't survive by herself, not me. The two little kids can't survive by themselves. The only ones who could survive would be the parents. And they are the only ones who could then go on and have more children. So I'm saying, now there may be other reasons. Oh, one of the children happens to be the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama. Well, then maybe you would keep that person. You know what I mean? There could be reasons. Or maybe we really could stretch the food and everybody could eat. That would be our, what we would hope for in the perfect world.
Yeah. And Kat says, good evening, and sends a heart of love and a bright shining star, musical notes, and a keyboard.
Thank you,
Kat.
So what I'm saying to you is, if we can transcend our egos, we can start looking at the reality that, in fact, we aren't going to survive if we don't start thinking clearly about everybody.
Mm-hmm.
We are not going to survive if we have people roaming around with guns, shooting people because they're emotionally disturbed, or they've become, I don't know what has happened to them, and they really shouldn't have those guns. But oh no, that's an individual. That individual has more rights than everybody else. I mean, that individual has more rights than the 100 people that they just massacred. So you see, what I'm saying is, our way of thinking is so ego-based,
right,
that people have a difficult time in even understanding that we cannot survive unless we start ensuring the survival of everybody in some way. If you set up a situation where everybody is a pauper but you are going to spend your life behind walls trying to keep out the people who are going to try to break those walls down to get at your food.
Oh, namaste. I'm from Kathmandu.
Very happy
Namaste
to see
to
you.
you.
Namaste. Namaste. So this whole concept, the way we look at everything, is ego-based.
Yeah.
We just tend to automatically flip into the individual. Now, I'm not saying the individual doesn't exist, but the individual exists in the context of oneness. We wouldn't have our thoughts, we wouldn't have our language, we wouldn't have our clothing, we wouldn't have our food, we wouldn't have any existence as human beings if we were not part of a whole. So we have been incredibly stupid, and the ego has been running the show forever. Every once in a while, you bump into somebody who you just see has another way of looking at things.
Aha.
Who a person who doesn't seem to be grasping for themselves. Someone who, we have another comment.
Island says, I love to hear this.
I love that you love
Wonderful.
it.
So
Thank
happy
you.
that
We
you
have
love.
somebody who doesn't hate me and isn't trying to shoot me already for what I'm saying. So it's ingrained in us to think of ourselves, or if we're really good, think of our families or our race or our society, but the whole world, guys. I'll give you another example that is so obvious. When people in other parts of the world don't have sanitation or food or health care, they can easily become infected. And what do you think happens to that infection?
It travels.
It travels.
People travel in airplanes. And the infection can spread all over the world.
That's
This
right.
happened with the pandemic.
Exactly. So you see, the pandemic is an example of oneness.
Yeah.
The universe is reminding us that we are one, and we can't be leaving people out, or we create so much resentment that there is going to be war. As we're all fighting for ourselves against each other.
So, Beth, would you tell us more about the alternative?
The alternative, guys, and this is what we're doing tonight, and this is the fun of this show, is ego grow up. I'm not trying to get rid of you. I just don't want you dominating me and my thinking, or you and your thinking, or anybody. But I would like to take that a step further. We tonight are extending an invitation to the ego.
Yes.
The ego in general, not just your ego or my ego, but we can start with my own ego, right? There's no problem with that. An invitation to join us in consciousness. Like, why can't the ego use its brains and its survival instinct to think more clearly, to join us in really understanding what really is going to protect us is collective well-being, collective wisdom, collective long-term thinking, generosity of heart, love, compassion. Those things are going to ensure our survival. Hateful societies, people who hate each other, don't create happy well-being for anybody. You know, I saw an article that said, the U.S. was way down in the happiness index. Way down. Gee, I wonder why. Is anybody surprised by that? People are afraid. They turn against each other.
People are worried.
They're worried. They feel insecure. There's no safety net. We're taught to compete. We're not taught to relate. We're drinking. We're drugging. We're gambling. We're doing all of these things to deal with our anxiety and our stress for feeling alone. And why do we feel alone? Because we don't know that we are one. We have bought into the separation dance.
Instead of the relationship.
That's right.
Relating to others.
Exactly. Instead of the relationship dance. So, that is leading us to an early grave. It does not do men any good to suppress women. Hey, guys, figure it out. You know, that's like taking half of the population and saying, we're not going to let you think. We're going to not let you make any kind of a contribution. We're not going to let you have any power. We're going to put our energy into suppressing you. Yeah, that is going to really do a lot for everybody, isn't it? So it's whether it's black people or gay people or whatever people, Jewish people who are not supposed to be a part of, this is the ego. Separating, saying, I am not you, I have a right to this, you don't, and then I deny myself of all the gifts that you could be bringing to our society.
Yep.
You know, and I'm spending energy suppressing you, you know, instead of supporting you. Well, because we're too threatened. How can we support anybody if we have to compete? I don't want you to go to school and maybe you'll get the job instead of me. I'd much rather that you be poor and downtrodden. Yeah. So then you go to the bank and the teller doesn't know how to add. Now, do you think that that's really a good way to live?
Not so much.
Would you rather have the guy who's driving the train be able to tell time?
Right.
I mean, wouldn't you rather that the cleaning person in your house can read the label that says, do not use? You know,
it's toxic.
This is toxic. I mean, everybody needs an education to function. Everybody needs wellness. They need security. They need happiness. I don't want to exist at your expense because that will ultimately destroy me. So, I am extending my hand to the ego. You're pretty smart, but you're also pretty stupid. So figure it out and join me, the self, right?
Yeah.
Let's us all join together.
Yes.
And let's try to make this a better world. Why can't we do that? You know, the ego has a place. I need to know that I'm an individual, because if I'm walking around with my head in the air and up my you know what, I'm not going to be very functional either. Like, I'm always, if everybody on the planet meditated 24/7, there would be no dinner. So, Island said,
Island says we should be caring for each other.
that's right, Island. That's
Very
right.
important.
So, I'm asking the ego to wake up and grow up. Don't you have enough experience knowing that this violence and alienation and fear and insecurity are bad for everybody?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the what you read about the aristocracy, I'm not talking about the aristocracy of today, though I could have some comments about that, or the aristocracy of the past. It's like, okay, so they had all the money and all the power, but they were just like, they were a mess, weren't they?
Yeah,
They
were.
were killing each other, and the women were being suppressed, and they were fighting, and there were wars and pestilence and all of that. I mean, really, what is the value of trying to grab everything and having to protect yourself? So, ego, I'm talking to you now. Beth's ego. You know, you really don't need to get jealous every time you see a spiritual teacher who has many more likes and followers than you. You know, you could be happy that there are other people out there who are teaching important things to people so that there's more wisdom, right? Do I really want to be the only yoga teacher, meaning that everybody has to come to me? Don't you think it's better that there be more than one? You know, that there could be some, and that even some that would continue existing after you're dead. So, I am not a yoga teacher, but I was using that as an example, right? So, ego, you don't have to prove you're smart. You don't have to prove you're right. You don't have to prove anything. You just need to figure out what your part is in this magical mystery called life, and do it well, and that's it. And see how you can work with others to bring a better world. And now I'm going to address your ego, James.
My what?
Your ego.
Okay.
So come on, join us.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you be a lot happier if I were happy and fulfilled than if I
Yes.
were stricken in bed, unable to compete with you, but unable to do anything, even have fun?
Absolutely. I want to support you in being as well as you can be, as strong as you can be.
And that's what I'm saying to the ego of every human being, animal, species on the planet. Don't we need our animal brethren to have a place to live? Do we really need to hog everything for ourselves? Does that make for a healthier world? Don't we need biodiversity? Don't we need plants? Don't we need trees? Doesn't everybody need these things? Isn't this the need of the whole, and isn't this our need too? Don't we need people to feel confident and to feel okay about being honest about themselves? Don't we need people to be relaxed, to be doing what they're good at, to not be so driven by ambition? Don't we all need that? Don't we need people to be healthy? Don't you want the person who is your Lyft driver to not have tuberculosis? Wouldn't that be a nice thing?
Yeah.
So I am speaking to you, the ego, in general, and saying, join us. There's no reason that the ego and the self should be separate. Only the ego makes it so. The ego of the self can say, well, I'm separate and I'm better than the ego. And the ego says, well, I'm above everything. Well, I say, baloney. We are one. Let's start acting that way. Join us and let's change the world that we all live in.
Hear, hear.
So please like or love this show. Please share it with everybody. Go back. There are 4 shows that we've done on these last 4 Wednesdays about the ego. Each one takes on something different. And let people know that we're here. Check out our healingartsnetwork.org. Come back every Wednesday for Lighting the Way. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next week. It seems that I may have completed the ego series for now. Check out Living with Reality on our healingartsnetwork.org. And we got a love from Island.
Oh, Island says, I love you.
Thank you, Island. We love you
Oh,
too.
thank
So good
you.
to see you. Can we ever have too much love or awareness on this planet? I don't think so. We need love and awareness. And let's do it together. So come back tomorrow night for Magical Improvs when the Songbird and I play together.
Yeah, Beth Green and the Healing Arts Band. We're improvising, composing on the spot.
That's right.
And it's very free form and free.
So now we need to go.
Okay.
And we will see you next week, we hope. Again, please share this program. And follow us on Facebook if you haven't already. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.